Hi,
Good.
my friend.
Hi, Agustin. How are you?
I'm very happy to see you. I'm so
Me
happy
too.
we get to do this now because we've been trying to do this for days, and the time zone and the challenges and the stresses, and here we are.
Finally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, good.
Well, I've been doing these talks with midwives all around the globe, figuring out what's happening in their neck of the wood or in their home country for some of them. And you have that. You're in the UK, but you're from Spain. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you know what's happening in those areas and how midwives
Yes,
are and how mamas are?
it's it's quite different because I mean things happen in Spain much earlier than in the UK. So I was getting all the news and I was getting everything like in advance. I kept telling my friends in the UK, do this, do that, stock up on craft things to do with the children, on this, on that, because, well, Spain was ahead. And they were quite, I don't know, they looked at me like in disbelief, like, oh, it won't be that bad. I guess, fear is so tricky. It's like if our government tells us no, we're okay, then we're okay. Everybody was happy in the streets, and then until they tell us, okay, now we are not, and then panic arrives because they've told us to. Situation in Spain at the moment, it's really, really bad for everyone. Especially obviously pregnant women who, they're changing the law constantly because of the rules. They say they have to give birth on their own. Then obviously they complain and then they say, okay, you're allowed to have someone, but not in the ward, but if the person coughs, and it depends on each hospital. There are hospitals where they're doing, and they call it virtual skin to skin, which means they take the baby away and they put a tablet in front of the baby and give a tablet to the mother. And it's like, well, that's not a skin to skin, that's nothing. It's just
Really?
crazy. Yes,
They,
yes.
they expect you to be with your baby over a baby monitor, and that's enough?
Yeah, yeah, that's so it's like if the mother has symptoms of COVID, and it's like, well, if the mother has symptoms of it, the baby's going to be much better getting the mum's milk and bacteria and everything. That's the way that they're going to be, that this is going to work, how they're going to be safest. So it's really, really bad. The home birth midwives, many of them are working, have stopped attending home births and have joined the hospitals. And there's also in Spain, you have to be a nurse to be a midwife. So a lot of the midwives are actually been asked to go and work as nurses in the improvised hospitals that they've done. And they are actually accepting this, which means women are completely being left. So in the hospitals, the obstetricians take care of women. And before this, it was still really medicalized and really doctor-led. But now it's like if they're taking the midwives out of the equation, it's even worse. I've had a few women calling me about having an assisted birth because I did a video I did two videos, one in Spanish and one in English, and then they've contacted me saying like, how can I do this? Or they are convinced that their partner is not, but they just see how terrible the situation is. That's the only thing they can think of is like, now I'm probably the hospital is where, and my home is where I'm going to feel safe because because obviously they've been in the parent groups, and then the other women are starting to give birth, and they're just telling such horror stories that then they're just saying like, well, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to be induced, or even they're sectioning people with just because they've got coronavirus. Well, it's crazy. In the UK, it's a little
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's so stressful for everyone. I'm so sorry.
It is. In the UK, it's a little bit better, but because it's always been, and midwifery care is much more strong and developed in the UK than in Spain. But it's been never stop home births in most of the places, because the midwives who attend home births, then they are needed in the hospitals, so they just cannot cover everyone. There's always been a lack of midwives, but now they're falling sick, and then there's even less midwives. So there are a lot of women. I mean, there are many people who choose home birth just because that's the place they like the most, but there are many others who choose that option because they had a horrible experience in the hospital before. So I'm just writing an article about this, like how we are failing women. We are failing them. When somebody said, oh, I'm choosing to have a home birth, and now it's, no, you're going to go again to the hospital where you didn't want to go. And the thing is, I don't know what the solution is, because I understand the side of the NHS saying like, how do we do this if we don't have enough staff? They're getting retired midwives and doctors and students, and or students like in the last year, they're just putting them to work, but still it's not enough. So yeah. It's really difficult.
And how are you? How is your heart in all of this?
I'm suffering a lot because I would like to do more, and I don't know what can I do. So for me, yes, I'm supporting these people who are calling me and telling me, oh, I want to have an assisted birth. Could you be there at the other side? Yes, if this is what I can do for people, fantastic, but it's in an individual level. And I'm really not helping that much. And giving birth on your own out of fear for the situation might not be also a good solution. So
yeah, it's not. Any fear-based decision is never excellent in any subject, but in birth especially. Yeah.
What about you? What is do you know what is happening in Australia?
Yeah, well, Australia is a very big country. It's low population, but it's a huge land area. And I happen to be in Western Australia, which is 3 days drive from the nearest next city. So I'm in the most isolated city in the world, actually. And on this side of the country, there's only 500 in some cases, and half of them have recovered. So there's not really a pandemic here. The numbers are bigger on the east coast of Australia, and they have instituted many of the same precautionary measures where only one partner can come, and they can't, if they leave, they can't come back, and things of that order. So there are lots of people interested in home birth. I've heard there are increased numbers deciding to do it as well. We just did a talk today, the videos on my YouTube channel, of home moms, brand new postpartum moms who chose home birth during the pandemic. And we had one mama from Australia and one mom from Minnesota and one mom from Oregon talking about why they made that choice and how they made that choice. And I think the Australian mom shared that now every pregnant woman she knows wants to do it at home because of the worries of things changing so rapidly.
Yes. And this has brought back to my memory. I was a newly qualified midwife. This was in 2002. And I was looking after a woman who was in the high dependency unit because she was HIV positive. I was looking after her. She was 34 weeks, and she was there because she had threatened preterm labor, so they had put them in all the drugs to stop her from going into labor. I was looking after her the evening of the New Year's Eve, and then I went back again on New Year's Day in the morning, and I was looking after the same people. And when I went to see this woman, she was in pain. I went to check what was happening, and the baby had died during that time since I saw her last, during the night. So the protocol then for HIV positive moms was a cesarean section. So we didn't have a protocol for vaginal delivery with an HIV mom. So, but obviously as the baby was dead, they were not going to section her. So I looked after this woman. They dressed me up as we can see it now, but for me it was something that was really, really hard because I could see, she couldn't see me. I had the mask, the goggles, the hat, the gown, and she was on a morphine drip, so that she was a little bit off what was happening. And what comes back to me the most is the image this woman had of like such a difficult, sad, painful situation, and the person who is, you can't see their face, you can see their, I don't know, their smile, you cannot comfort her that way. And now this is happening to almost everyone.
The globe over. Yeah.
And for me, it's like out of my career, it's been like the hardest moment. And it's not because it was a dead baby, it was because I was covered all over. Because when I've looked after families with a stillborn, it's different. You can communicate. You can see their face. You can hold their hand. You can, I don't know, give them a hug and cry with them. And that was the main reason why it was so difficult, because I was stressed.
It strips your humanity.
Totally.
We're hiding our humanity from each other with PPE.
Mm-hmm. And everything you read, and it's like, what? Like this could be just like forever, or it's going to take so long, and this is going to change the way we interact with each other.
Forever.
It's terrible. And we will never know how well we've managed these. But and it's very easy to say when this happened, oh, we should have done such and such and the other thing. Oh, but I just know this is wrong, what we are doing now. And I'm not saying I've got the solution. I have no idea. But this cannot be the way. This cannot be the right thing, just to tell women you're going to hospital, you cannot have the people you wanted to be with you, and then we're just going to be all covered and you won't be able to see us. And if you're coughing, then we'll just take the baby away and you see the baby through a screen until you're clear and you're well. So obviously that's not it. I'm sorry I haven't got an alternative, but I just know that this is not the right thing.
Yeah, I've been spending most of this week trying to wrap my head around the unintended consequences of social distancing and quarantine. And we really have no idea. No idea what the repercussions of these choices are. And I agree with you. I don't necessarily propose a solution, an alternative. I understand that, I mean, I believe that scientists and epidemiologists and doctors truly do want to save lives and instituted these policies as a way to do that. But I'm not sure we know the full ramifications of these choices. I'm not sure we even have the ability to understand what the fallout is in all the areas: mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, environmentally, generationally, familially, financially. I mean, I don't think we know all the ways.
No idea. And
yeah. And I really am not entirely convinced that we're saving more lives this way.
Exactly, because obviously,
yeah.
How many people are going to die, not of the virus, but as a consequence of what it's done to their lives, how it has impacted them in, I don't know, losing the job, I don't know, getting crazy because nobody gives them a hug. What about people who are on their own, like yourself? It's like, at least the ones who are with their family, you can hug your family. But when you're alone, or people who is just that person on their own, the amount of people who will have mental health issues as a consequence from these. There's one thing
we just don't know. We're calling them deaths of despair, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People who die because their life no longer has meaning.
Yeah.
And in the UK, I saw that the death rate from domestic violence is double this month that it was last month.
Yes, and the amount of calls they've received have really has reduced a lot, but the amount of online people reaching out has, I don't know, increased by 3-4 times. Because obviously, I mean, if you are at home with your abuser, you're not going to get the phone and say like,
no.
So yeah, you go on your phone and you write an email to whoever it is asking for help. So it's terrible. And then when you're in a situation that you feel a little bit more, let's say, happier, I can say I'm in a house with a garden, I'm with my family, we love each other, but that doesn't mean we're not suffering also the consequences of this. Yes, there are other people who are in a much worse situation than we are, but still it's I don't know, it's going to have consequences for everyone.
Change. Forever. The children that are right now growing up in this might always have a fear of germs, might always feel like they have to social distance. We may have changed the very fabric of the way humans interact forever.
Yeah.
And the babies that are born right now who are meeting masked alien strangers and who are spending weeks alone. I mean, we don't even know. I agree. I'm so sorry. You told me a story of one of the most atrocious things I've heard about someone in Spain that went into the hospital to have a baby and never came out.
Yes. This just happened a couple of weeks ago, and they have no idea what happened because the partner was not allowed in, and after a while he was just told his baby was dead and so was his wife. And She had a cesarean section, that they know that. And then they said she had COVID and they incinerated her straight away. So that family will never know what happened. And why? I mean, even if she died because of COVID, people are not being incinerated straight away. People in Spain, they are allowed to have one person to go to the, I don't know how you call it, the place where
Morgue.
Morgue, okay.
Yeah.
And one person to go to the burial, one relative. So it was just quite dark what happened there, in the way that there is, okay, this now, I'm not saying this is what happened, but if this woman died consequence of the cesarean section and not of the coronavirus, there's a way that they just can cover themselves up and just blame it in something else, because then they're going to get rid of all proof. And about that family is just, I mean, we've heard stories about 30, 40 years ago when they stole babies from people and just gave them to somebody else and told them that their baby had died. And when you cannot see your dead person, there is something that I think you cannot really start to grieve, because that never closes. And the what if, it's going to be there all the time, reminding you and telling you, what if? What if my baby did not die? What if, I don't know, it's terrible. In Spain, we're still very far back in respecting human rights, especially women's rights when they're pregnant. And they are taken away from them. Even the law protects us, but it doesn't happen. A doctor is an authority that nobody questions their knowledge. And if you do question it, then you get in trouble. And there's been several cases where the woman does not accept what the doctor is saying, and the doctor calls the judge, and the judge, without talking to the woman, they just say, like, yes, you can forcibly take this woman into hospital, forcibly do an induction to her, forcibly, and then the society just says, like, well, if a judge said so, then obviously that was right. Or if a doctor said so, then who is she to say no? It's like, well, the owner of the body where things are happening. So, and we think, I'm just thinking, let's just imagine, because they always put the excuse with a pregnant woman that it's not just her. She's got a baby, and there's a baby, and we have to think about this baby. And that's the excuse to just forget her rights and do whatever you please. But just imagine there is this man who is the only possible donor for his child to survive, and he doesn't want to, and he's petrified and so scared. He doesn't have, I don't know, a good relation with the son. He left, and people will be saying, oh, he's a horrible person, but nobody's going to force him to give them the kidney or whatever it is that only that person can give it to his own child. And yes, he will be really criticized, but we would never think that they're going to force him and forcibly remove something, touch his body. But with women, we've accepted this. It's like, if doctors say this, then you take it. And if you don't take it, you're very selfish and you're not thinking of your baby. When I was going to say all mothers, but yes, who can think of a woman who wouldn't take a decision in the best interest of the baby? And even if
the only individual I can think of like that is someone who is intoxicated. Yeah. And that's a separate problem.
Yeah.
But it's still, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the argument that we have to protect babies stems from an erroneous conclusion to begin with, because it starts with the conclusion that somehow that's not the mother's first concern. And the idea that the state or doctors or the court system or government or public policy or anyone would somehow think that they have a bigger concern for the safety and well-being of that baby than the own mother. Like, that is an erroneous, that's a fallacy right there. Like, that is incorrect right reasoning. And yet we have, like, society is built around that very reasoning. We have court systems and doctors and systems developed specifically to save babies from their scary, dangerous mothers.
Exactly.
It's really, I mean, it's a huge worry of mine. And this is not just in Spain, and it's everywhere, actually. The centering the safety of a baby while discounting the authority and sovereignty of the person's body the baby is in. It's the ultimate in this misogynistic, patriarchal world, you know, that the woman has become a vessel and nothing else.
Exactly.
She can be cut open without any concern for the vessel because it's just a vessel. That is very disturbing, and we're seeing this everywhere. That the crisis of the pandemic, the virus, the economic shutdown, the stringent rules, everything that's changed in the last month are just bringing into sharp focus the inequities and the disparities that existed before. So I'm sure you're seeing in the United States, African American, Black women, men, Latino, Latinx, Hispanic men and women are dying at alarming rates, are infected at alarming rates compared to white families. And that is just bringing into sharp focus these inequities that existed before. And this misogynistic, patriarchal view that you're seeing in Spain is just bringing into sharp focus what was already wrong.
Yeah, that's very true. You're making me remember now. This was a few years ago now, but there was a woman who had a section without anesthesia because the doctor had no time to wait for the anesthesia to work because that baby was going to die. It's like, well, then let the baby die, but you cannot cut a woman open with no anesthesia just to, and is that what you said? We are vessels, we're just containers of others that seem to have more rights than ourselves. And even this woman, obviously, yes, she screams, save my baby, because, well, of course, you're scared, and what are you going to say? Because, yes, the mothers usually want the best for the babies. And you don't take a decision like giving birth at home, or you don't take a decision like that lightly. Just,
yeah. But I think the point that,
no.
Yeah, I think the point that you and I both feel strongly about is that even if she wasn't advocating for the safety and well-being of her baby, she still has rights. And that's what seems to have been run over. And I just did a podcast actually on the new podcast platform, Help for Mothers, about this exact conversation, which is essentially the intense and now heightened debate around personal autonomy versus public health.
Yeah.
And this whole public health emergency that caused the pandemic and the economic shutdown and the sanctions and the quarantine and the house arrest and all the things we're all going through is designed to save the masses, while individually we are injuring many. So on the balance, is it really actually creating safety?
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't know the answer. And I've been criticized very loudly and publicly for asking these questions on social media, but I think they're valid questions. I
Of
think
course
we
they are.
should continue to ask questions, because it's not, I mean, like someone was like, you can't argue the benefit of the economy versus people's lives. And I was like, no, 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 no. It's lives versus lives. Forget about the economy and money. Think about the people. When the people stop working, when the people stop having money and meaning in their life, when the people stop having somewhere to be and go and feel like they're contributing to the greater good, when they're deemed non-essential, that's a risk.
Mhm. It
And
is.
we don't know the long effect of that. The epidemiologists have charted, you know, this curve, this infection pattern, the long effect of doing nothing. And so I'm sure that's true. I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't know how exactly that's created, but I believe that it's true, that if without intervention, more people do get sick faster and hospital systems can be overwhelmed. But it's not like apples to apple. Like it's apples to oranges. Like doing something has risk as much or maybe more than doing nothing. And I think we have to keep thinking about it. Like to me, I keep thinking about the informed decision-making process that we do with families when we talk about VBAC, right? So when a mom is coming to you pregnant with a baby after having had a cesarean, and people are counseling her about the risks and benefits and alternatives and the risks of her choice, planning a vaginal birth compared to planning a repeat cesarean are not, like, you can't say you should definitely have a cesarean, that's safer, because it's not. And you cannot say you should definitely choose a vaginal birth after cesarean because the vaginal birth is safe. You can't. Like, both have risks. We can't rewind the clock and go back and be like, don't have the original cesarean. That would be the safest thing to do, but we can't do that. And so, like, in this moment, saying like, stay home, flatten the curve, okay, that has the chance to save lives for sure. But stay home also risks lives. And I think we haven't really talked about that. And then there's all the consequences of the actual effects of the virus. And then there's the consequences of the unintended effects of this, you know, isolationism, where families don't even get to hear that their people have died for days, or, you know, they don't get to mourn it, or if they have to mourn, they mourn silently, they mourn privately. Like, it's changing everything.
It is.
And I'm so sad. I'm so sad every day. And I think you are too. I'm so sad for people.
It is. I mean, when this started, well, not in China, but when it came to Europe, and in Spain they had started self-isolating, and Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister in the UK, said, we're not doing that. We're just going to carry on as we did. And I thought it was very brave. It was just like, well, if all the countries do exactly the same thing, how are we going to know what works? But then obviously, as the pressure increased, then he decided to do the same as...
Well, and he got sick himself.
Yeah, true. But then I mean, and I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but we cannot compare if we are all doing exactly the same thing. Then,
well, there's a lot of people watching. Sweden and Taiwan seem to be the only two countries that are not doing the massive lockdowns. And so we shall see what happens with both of those countries. But yeah, so far it looks like at least, you know, all industrialized countries are doing the same thing. I really wonder about Indonesia. You know, I was in Indonesia before I left to come here to Australia, and I've been following some of those midwives on the ground in several areas in Indonesia. There've been a few deaths, but they aren't doing any large-scale testing. And so there's not the same kind of panic. And there's many midwives and people that think that they all had it in January and February before the lockdown started.
Yeah.
Here in Asia. And I really wonder, like, I think it might be years before we have this real information, but yeah, I don't know. Well, I feel for you. I feel for you.
Sorry.
Hmm.
One of the things that I dislike the most about living in the UK, like being from Spain and living here, is how Spanish people and Portuguese and Italian, we touch people, we cuddle and kiss strangers. This is you touch people. It's in our culture, and here that doesn't happen. And here, if you're going through a group of people, everyone is aware that you're passing by, so they will move, so you won't touch them. And if you do just like very, very gently touch someone, they will apologize. And for me, that was, what's the problem? And I mean, when I talk to my students, one of the first things was, I'm a toucher, I'm going to touch you. So if you have problems with this, just let me know and I won't do it, because I think it's important. Human contact it's really good. It's really nice. We all like being touched by our loved ones. And I think that not liking being touched by others have been actually put in our heads, like, oh, no, don't do that. So now that this is where we're going, and they were saying why in Italy and in Spain they have had more cases than anywhere else, that's because that's how we are, because we touch people. But I have no idea if that's the reason or not, but maybe because it's warmer, and because it's warmer, the virus spreads much more and lives more. We don't know. But then just saying, stop touching each other, stop being friendly, because this might be what is killing people, when it's not happening. It's not that bad in Portugal, and they're very similar to us. So that is what you said. It's really, really scary. What is going to happen from this? And will we be scared of touching people? As I saw this difference between Spain and the UK before all this happened, now is it going to be something that is going to be imposed? And it's just like, no, don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you aware of any riots like is happening in Germany?
No, I mean, there's some some groups that I belong to, that people start to say, like, we should do something, but most people is really compliant to what they are told. And I find it really, really difficult. And the problem is, like, there was a big movement in Spain, I can't remember, it was 10 years ago, where people took the street. They stayed in Madrid, most important square, and they just wanted to take the government. Let's say, it's like, you're not doing what you should be doing. So they started to having assemblies and talking and a political group came out of that. But now that political group is in the government. It's part of the government. So that's it. We are controlled that way also, because that's where it went. It was made political, and so no, I don't think it's going to happen. Really, but and Spain is the only country where children are not allowed to go out in the street, and they live in flats, most of the people. So
there's one other country I just read that children are not, Bolivia. I talked to a midwife in Bolivia.
Okay.
Children under 18 are not allowed outside, and she said it's been weeks since she's seen a child.
Yeah. And it's terrible, but people are, okay, well, that's not that bad. We've got internet, we've got, yeah, you, but what about all the people who don't? What about what we said about domestic violence? What about those ones who have abusive parents, or I don't know, or brothers or sisters? And it's terrible. And yes, this is going to have terrible consequences to all these people. Just imagine a teenager. I'm not saying a toddler maybe doesn't mind that much, but somebody who is 12, 13, 14, there is just like, going through adolescence in this situation when you think the world is against you, and nobody understands you. Well, this is going to be even worse. And they're like, the schools are saying that they're not, that they will have their final exams, and like this will not change anything, which just adds to the pressure that on top of that you have to every day, I don't know, study 4 or 5 hours to catch up or carry on doing what you were doing at school. Is like, well, if the world has stopped, this should stop too. I mean, and let people, I don't know, be creative. What do you in today? If you just want to sleep and not get out of bed, well, you're entitled to do that. It's like, no, every day you're going to be in front of the teacher will have like a Zoom platform and will be explaining to the kids what they have to do. It's like, this is extremely unfair. We're just telling them to carry on as if nothing has happened when something huge has happened, and we're just telling them, well, you have to comply. This is it. You don't get out of your house, you stay there, and on top of that, you're going to have your final exams at the end of the year, and if you don't pass, you will be repeating next year the same year you're doing now. So I feel really, really sorry especially for children in general, because this is just a horrible situation, and they have no voice, and nobody talks about it.
They have no voice. Isn't that wow? Well, we are not a bundle of laughs tonight, but I sure love you. Thank you.
I do love you.
Thank you for sharing.
I find it so important. That's another thing I do not understand, why people are so scared of saying I love you to someone. All these American sitcoms, there's this huge thing always that there is a new couple and, oh, he said I love you and I wasn't ready. And it's like, why is so difficult to say I love you? Yeah. I just met you
more love.
2 days ago. Well, so what? And what it means, you make me feel this way when I'm with you. And it's nice to tell people that.
I agree. I couldn't agree more.
I send you a huge hug.
Thank you.
Put my arms up.
Digital hug.
And I hope we talk very soon. I hope this is over sooner than we expect. You can fly back home. Where is home exactly? Is it Hawaii where you? No. Well,
no, I haven't had it home in 4 years.
Where is your family?
All over, spread all over the US. But
okay.
My parents are in Colorado, so I would go home to see them. My kids are in Nevada and Washington. I would go see them.
How many kids have you got?
3 and a grandbaby. I know. I'm the old lady now.
Well, you're my age, more or less. But
yeah, maybe I'm a little
more. Just a little.
Well, anyway, I'm so grateful we got to talk, and I just thank you so much.
Me too. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, let's.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.